I'm Emily Harveau. I'm 51 years old. I am close to a 2-year carnivore. I know your channel is very focused on the carnivore journey. So my introduction to carnivore was through ketogenic diet and fasting, which is so cool because we're seeing a lot of that now. We're seeing a lot of folks that kind of got that initial healing with taking the carbs out, taking the processed foods out. And now carnivore has been this segment that is appropriate for so many people, helps people feel their best. And so that has been my journey. I've had a huge weight loss story. I'm 5 years into it. I started all this in 2017, reading Dr. Fung's book. I was up at 300 pounds. I'm 5'8", and had struggled with morbid obesity my entire life, but especially once I had children. I have 4 kiddos. Once that pregnancy weight started coming on, I just would not lose it. I'd gain maybe 50 pounds with each pregnancy, but then it just wouldn't come off. Maybe 20 of it would come off and then become pregnant again, and another 50, maybe 20 would come off. So I just was kind of eking my way up and losing control with eating and food, and was just becoming larger and larger, was gaining weight very rapidly several different times. So fasting kind of opened the door for me, just realizing that I could go for long periods of time without food, and that was healthy, and that was fixing my hormones. This is what we know, Jonathan. These are all hormonals, right? Everything that's affecting our health and affecting how we feel good, it all comes down to the hormones, and the types of food have a very specific effect on hormones. So fasting kind of got that initial health journey going, got me the motivation, got me feeling good enough. And I layered in low carb and keto on top of that. I gave carnivore a brief try in 2019, but I gained weight immediately, as we know happens for a lot of people. And I hightailed because I was so focused on the scale. And so I just was like, forget that. I think I did it for about a month and actually had some oxalate dumping during that time, but I didn't have support. It wasn't as well known, and I just didn't know anybody that was doing it that can encourage me with it and that could actually help me through the weight gain, because that was terrifying. I had accomplished so much at that point. So I pitched that, kind of went back to keto fasting. Got down to under 200 pounds, which is a big deal for us lady dieters. We call it Wonderland. And so at that point it was a huge accomplishment because I'd lost 100 pounds and was curious about trying carnivore some more. My ultimate win was in 2021. I'd gotten so addicted to artificial sweeteners, keto treats, all of the fat bombs, nut butters, right? So all these things that we got really into. My kitchen was like my own little chemistry lab, was making all these fatty, sweet things, and was still actually food addicted. Was feeling better, was lighter, I could do more things, but I still binged. I still thought about those keto treats all the time. They're just on my mind and consumed me, and buying like sugar-free candies on Amazon. And, I still was so addicted to this sweet and fat together. So anyhow, decided to try carnivore, and for 30 days. And this time it stuck. I was so determined. I started developing like an Instagram account. So there's some accountability in there to kind of read what the other people were doing. How were they doing it? What were they eating? It was looking at food pictures all the time to figure out, how could I eat yummy things with this carnivore diet? How can I feed my family with this diet as well? So that was amazing. I did that for 6 months and continued to lean up and continued to feel good, was able to exercise and continue to weight loss. And so by the end of my carnivore experiments, had actually lost half of my size, had lost 150 pounds and was feeling good. I had that food freedom. I didn't have cravings. Those were gone. And right around that time, I realized that there were these communities that we could be part of. So it was a perfect time for me, because carnivore still, you're kind of like in your own world, and you don't eat like the people around you, the people you work with, the other moms I hang out with. They're like, you do what? So this online support system became something that invigorated my journey. So I just figured this out. I learned that these groups that you can be a part of, where you actually get to talk about your struggles and be on Zoom together, see people face to face and live. It was a huge turning point for me. And during that time was able to network with some incredible people that also really believed in fasting and really believed in carnivore, and believed that combining those two, for a lot of people, we can get their health headed in a wonderful direction, because they are both healing modalities. So yeah, and I'm just here almost year and a half later, and I'll be 2 years carnivore in January, and just love being a part of the community. The community is really what invigorates me and why I stay with it and keep going and continue to help other people find their healing.
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, just hearing that, I notice more so for women than men. It seems to be that having the community approach is more beneficial. A bloke can just follow a diet and sort of calculate what they're eating and be about all right, you know. But women do seem to like to have that group herd mentality and that
Ooh.
community.
That is so interesting.
Mm.
What a great observation. Yeah, I think you're right. The communities that I'm in several different communities. I love learning, from the different things. And there's a lot of carnivores that even have them for free. You can just show up and chat, they have their Zoom link. And I just did that yesterday. Rita had a great community. I popped in and said hi. You're right. There were no blokes there. You are correct.
Yeah, I'm quite analytical. I see what goes on behind these doors. Um, I mean, I think you made a good point as well about like having face-to-face conversations. I mean, obviously we're in a different continent right now, but doesn't mean the value each of us can give to each other isn't there. So I think gone are the days of us going to these like village slimming centers, anything like that. I think now we can just join these groups online. I'm in loads of Facebook groups, and people ask me stuff all the time, and I try and help them out. But the thing is, you don't always get the full picture. So one thing that you don't see is, I see this with a lot of carnivores. They'll say, "Oh, I eat this, this, and this, and that's it." The reality is, a lot of people do have cravings, and they do cheat on their diet. And I think a lot of people are painting a bit of a fake, like a false picture. Um,
Mm.
I'm seeing that a lot of people I speak to, they say, "Oh, I caved on the weekend. I caved on this," and it's bad. But admittedly, they've sort of said, "Well, I'm craving foods a lot less, and I'm binging a lot less." So
Right.
yeah, I mean, did you notice that for yourself when you did most of your weight loss? Did you notice that you're binging less, or your cravings when things became so much easier?
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. I mean, tremendously shifting from, I was so stubborn when I first started fasting. I refused to kick out the carbs and the processed food because there's a philosophy of fasting that says that you don't ever have to pay any attention to your food. I have a real hard time with that, coming as far as I've come. But there's a philosophy that almost like the fast itself will detox any poor decision you made. If during your eating window you want a milkshake and French fries, then go for it. So I as attractive as that mindset was, it just didn't work out for me. It kept me in so much bondage. It kept me in so much addiction. You are correct. There are so many continuums along this journey, and there's no reason for someone to feel that I'm not carnivore if something went sideways on them over the weekend. I do think it's important for them to share that in community and for you to be able to kind of talk it through, because you're right. It's like, what percent of success are you wanting? And I tend to think that people doing a moderate will get moderate results. And so that's the thing about carnivore is a lot of people that go 100% carnivore, they've dealt with their healing. Things have really turned around from them. They get so enthusiastic and they say big statements. And I've said it before. I said a ton of big statements on my carnivore healing journey. And so there is an element to taking that strict carnivore road that you just don't know until you've taken it. Or even like I've heard you say that you might be taking a break from dairy for a little while, because you can't know how you're going to feel unless you do that. And we know that for some people, dairy is inflammatory, causes weight gain, is addictive. We know that for a lot of people, it kind of falls in that category. So knowing yourself and knowing how you feel your best is so important. And you're right, on these static posts, like an Instagram or something like that, if we're connecting like that, well, all we have to do is show our highlight reel, right? And so we don't say the whole story. There's a whole other stories that happen. I think that when we're doing these face-to-face kind of supportive and encouragement conversations, that it's more human and we can see each other. It just kind of levels it to where we're no longer trying to impress anybody. Now, we're just hanging out. It's a lot more like friendship. It's a lot more natural. And you get a different sorts of feedback. Like you and I having this conversation right now, this is something that helps us grow a friendship, versus if you're looking at somebody's image or something on Instagram, then it kind of makes you feel like I'm less than. Then you're always like comparing yourself to that image and comparing yourself to how perfect they are. So I think it is important. I think the live touchstones bring a humility that that an Instagram page or a Facebook page or just scrolling around can't give you. And so I think that as just imperfect humans, that it's actually helpful for a lot of us to just show up and literally hang out together and problem solve things when nobody's pretending. Nobody's like, oh, what's my image? Like, did I get the right angle? Or, like, it's just like very humble and realistic. And so I think that it's wonderful that those exist.
Yeah, that's a cool approach to have. And when I'm coaching my clients, I sort of encourage them, send me a voice note, send me a video
Oh,
of you
yes.
training. Like, do these things which you can hear in someone's voice what they're feeling in a way.
Yeah,
So the more real it is, the better your data is. So as a coach, you can interpret it and make better adjustments. So I think that
I
part's
agree.
critical as well.
I feel that being an excellent coach is potentially 80% what your presence is like, and how you connect and absorb and reflect. As a coach, aren't we mirrors, Jonathan? Aren't we just holding up a mirror for the most part? And we're just showing them, what things are possible, that when we speak the things to them that we know that they can do and they are capable of, then they start believing that more themselves. And I think that to me, it's every bit as much about tone. And then we're so fortunate that we really do have this healing modality, the carnivore diet, things that are actually going to help their health. And so we can give them something that in and of its own is going to make a huge difference. But then if we can present that within that coaching relationship and they trust us, it helps them trust themselves.
Yeah, completely. It all just makes things easier, and that's why I'm doing these interviews. My channel is focused on physiques and aligning them
Oh,
with health outcomes. So the thing is, I made a video recently about body image, and the idea was, I'm a I wouldn't say how heavy, but I'm a big bodybuilder basically. I'm from the UK, and my girlfriend,
and you have your shirt on. That's amazing.
I've done well there. I've like, yeah, I'm quite humble, but my girlfriend, she's not a bodybuilder. She's a little bit overweight. She's trying to lose some weight, and she's got a different journey to me, and your journey will be different to hers. And people will probably see me and think, oh, he doesn't really care much for this, but I'm always most motivated by the people that have gone to 300-400 pounds and then dropped it all back off. I find it incredible because they've shifted their mindset and they've grown a lot more as a person. I find that to be the most inspirational thing, and I'm seeing it time and time again. Like, I mean, I don't know what your starting weight was, but you've dropped a dramatic amount of weight. So the next question I have for you is, what is your current diet like? And when I ask that question, I don't want you to just say to me, "Oh, I eat 2 pounds of beef a day," because you know it's everyone says that. I mean, do you eat a pound of beef and like I don't know 6 eggs, some dairy? Like, I know it'll vary each day, but what were you eating on an average day?
You want me to tell you as detailed as possible?
Do it.
So I have been experimenting since last May with going high fat is what we call it, And so it's been really different because when I started carnivore, I was more of a volume eater, which was kind of more along what you're saying, to the 2 to 3 pounds of meat. And I am faster as well. My body loves fasting. I've trained it how to fast. And so it would be like a big amount. And then I just wouldn't eat for a day or two, and then eat a big amount. And then, so I've experimented with lots of different styles. So right now I'm a terrible tracker. And so I'm awful with amounts. It's more visual. So visually, I will take, my base will be a protein source of some kind. And whether that's like this morning, I had these Titan sausages, which is a very clean beef Polish sausage that we can get from Costco. but I always fill it out with lots of fat. So I'll have like a protein portion of some kind, usually beef, usually steak, but I eat all meats. I eat fish, chicken, all of it. So I'll start with kind of my protein, and then I build a lot of fat around it. And so my fats currently, I do goat cheese, butter, tallow. I experiment with tallow all the time, and I was kind of trying to come up with different tallow sauces, like dipping my protein in like these fatty sauces. So a plate of a decent size protein, anywhere from 30 grams of protein, something about that, and then I just fill it out with fats. So I'm very high fat carnivore. I went higher fat since in the last 6 months, and I really like it. I just love how I feel. I feel like I can feel the ketones, and then I can feel the improved mental state and the sharpness. And I've recently added back exercise recently, just in the last couple of weeks, actually. My husband and I started going to CrossFit, and it's going great. I have a little bit more craving for protein, which I think makes sense. And so that has come up a little bit, but it's still very high fat. So coffee is in for me right now. I do a lot of fatty coffees. So I'll do a lot of egg yolks. I don't really eat the whites hardly at all. I'll do, say, a coffee that has egg yolk, butter, maybe a little bit of heavy cream. I tried for the cream to be like the little extra and not to just go crazy on the cream, because I really could go crazy on the cream. So yeah, dairy's there as a side dish, as a complement. Meats and fats and butter is primarily what I eat.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, I'm not too fancy at the moment. I'm trying to see how far I can take my diet and my health status at the moment. So I'm doing just beef and lamb. I'm going to try it for a week, maybe a bit longer, and see what happens. But yeah, I
Are
mean,
you using any like suet or tallow, or butter? Are you complementing with any fat to that? Or is it just the skeletal meat only, the muscle meat only?
so I'm doing fatty cuts of meat and
Yeah,
added tallow. So I'm doing about 2 tablespoons of tallow with each meal, and each meal is probably about half a pound of meat, and I'm doing about 4 a day. If it's 3 meals a
great.
day, it'd be a bit more. So yeah, it's very strange, like getting your head around the idea of eating extra fat. I mean, I came from a diet where I was a bodybuilder, so still technically am, but when I was competing, I'd come from a diet on very low fat intakes, and
Oh,
it's it's a night and day difference when you actually increase your fat and how calm
yes.
your body feels. I mean, I don't know if you've experienced that.
Of course, that's why I'm sticking with it so much. And then, of course, I have to mention too that it helps my fast. So then, when I do decide to go into a fast, since I'm having such a high fat beginning, it's just my fasts are really easy, which I'll do maybe one day a week or something. I will have a skip day, or a day that I'm not eating. But completely the calm that we get from fat. And so, we like to work with Dr. Elizabeth Bright quite a bit on the gang, and she will oftentimes explain this phenomenon to us, is that it's like the antidote to cortisol. Okay. And so the stress response that we're having, then when you eat that fat, it just brings it all the way down. And I feel it. It is tangible. I feel it when I eat the fat, and I feel it when I just have a continual level of fat burning, that it's like a little zing, it's like a little buzz, but it's a calm buzz. It's not a hyper buzz. Sometimes when I'm fasting, I can get a little bit of the hyper buzz. That's a focus, like productive. I can get a lot done. But eating the high fat, it's very calming. I'm so happy to hear that you're feeling that as well, because, you think about the hormetic stress of bodybuilding, like that's a lot. And it's like, it's amazing. I am so impressed by bodybuilders. I just think they're phenomenal. But what you're thinking about, what's happening with your hormones, and the things that are happening with that inside and behind the scenes. Obviously, if you're getting into a competitive sport, an extreme sport, you are a person that's susceptible to pushing yourself too far and pushing yourself past the edge, right? And so I think that the fat complement is just like the perfect modality to go with that, with, of course, all this wonderful red meat, all your complete amino acids. So I'm excited to hear how that journey keeps going for you.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I'm not going to want to stop doing it the way it's helping me. I mean, I've probably got up to about 360 to 400 grams of fat a day. And
Nice.
yes, it's a lot of, for anyone that doesn't know, that imagine um, probably like sticks of American butter, something like that. So yeah, it's quite a lot of fat. Um, and the other thing as well is touching on like the calmness. So I was out with my brother a few nights ago, and we went to a concert. Before we went there, we parked up, and we almost like came across maybe some homeless people or something, and they're sort of approaching us. And usually, myself, I would be anxious. I'd want to get away there quickly, but I was so calm. And it is like
Mm,
odd because I'm the sort of person who would be anxious in that sort of situation. But the way I dealt with
mm,
things seems so much more different. And that was actually very useful because then I think every sort of life stressor that comes across my path is
yeah.
going to be nullified. So I'm not going to experience that intense anxiety and stress anymore. So I'm probably going to improve my well-being in general. So yeah.
It absolutely is. That's a beautiful thing. It's a perfect example. And to be able to have clearer thoughts and appropriate reactions, because I think that most of us are too low on fat. And so we're having exaggerated responses to things. And this put you right in the sense of control. That's phenomenal.
So what would you recommend to people that are starting up the carnivore diet? Would you recommend they approach it from a ketogenic approach first, or just going all like carnivore, or would you say, phase out vegetables and fruit?
Yeah, there can be a lot of different ways to get there. We definitely have a very specific protocol that I know that you talked about with Cherish and Coach Raymond, so I don't need to get into that. So I would recommend trying that. That Raymond has come up with something phenomenal that is a great start for people, because what you need when you're starting is you need to get them past the addictive part, right? Because that addiction is so strong and they are used to giving into that addiction every day, several times throughout the day. And so I do really agree with a feasting approach first to carnivore. I think starting with high fat, I don't know about that. I feel like because there's so many transitions and digestion issues that happen, I actually really prefer beginners to start with beginner foods that they love. And so to me, like a bacon and eggs is perfect. Most people can conceive of that. I would never recommend they go 100% ruminant or lion diet to start with, but start bringing that in a little bit. Sometimes a steak sounds really good to people. So we're like, we want to encourage that because steak is very unique in its complete nutrient profile, but it's also quite delicious and most people love it. So a fatty steak is a great place to start, but you do have to be careful with amounts of fats as to not overwhelm their digestive system. So this balance that we're playing is we're wanting them to eat enough to not have cravings anymore, but we're wanting to not the other transitions that can happen, digestive issues. We have to kind of be aware of that as well. So beginners, bacon and eggs is the way to go. Whatever meat that sounds good and that you love and that is going to be something you would want to buy anyways. Definitely not the time to experiment with new foods. And, you want it to be as affordable as possible too, because long term, that's going to have to be part of the piece for them to stick with it. I definitely recommend some treat carnivore foods when you're starting, like even cheeses, butters. I don't think you should take that stuff out just to start with. I think you should start with things that really do sound good to you. The cheeses, we really recommend they're used as a condiment, not as the main dish, because some of us have such a love affair with cheese. I used to eat like a melted plate of cheese, and then I would have all kinds of issues, digestion problems, things that go with it. So you're thinking of like your normal foods, like a taco bowl, hamburgers, just take away the bun. I think that if it's possible to go 100% to start and the foods are gentle and the body's handling that, I like that better. I don't really like the graduated approach. Potentially if they wanted to still keep some vegetables in, but we know that the vegetables are going to cause issues, can cause issues for a lot of people. So I'm very accepting. I think if they know their personality and they really want to just keep those greens in or keep the salads in for a while, certainly I can't say that won't work for people. But I'm in it for the big win. I'm in it for the long-term goal. I'm in it for them actually getting rid of those cravings, which really does happen. And you can't tell me very many diets where people literally lose their cravings. Carnivore is the only one that I really know of that gets people to that level of food freedom. So definitely I'd be looking to get them to 100% carnivore as soon as possible, just sticking to foods that are gentler for their body.
Yeah, that's great advice. I'd probably say the same thing, to be honest. Um, so for anyone that's watching this video that perhaps they're quite advanced and they want to try out like a high fat approach. So how might they start that?
Yeah, I think that butter is one of the best places to start because it's readily available. It's easy to measure. So you can just start gradually by adding more and more butter to the diet. But any fatty meat, it's not really a new concept. This is a concept that's been around for a long time. It's just that we're kind of, there's more emphasis on it right now and more intention with it right now to see if it can mitigate some of the other problems that people have with carnivore. Yeah, so stick to your fatty meats, do lots of dips. I don't know if that's a bloke lady issue. If the ladies are the ones that need more of those little fatty dips for their things, the fatty coffees. I don't hear the blokes talking about it quite as much. So definitely look into those buttery recipes that can just make everything taste really good. And then most people will notice a natural appetite suppression coming in. A lot of people will find it handy to divide the protein out during the day and not have like a huge meal when you're first getting started. But just know the body adapts. And so if you're starting with maybe 3 meals a day, but then your goal is that for simplicity of your day, you want to be an OMAD person, your body can learn how to do that. So just because where you started doesn't necessarily mean that can't shift and change over time.
Yeah, that's great advice. I mean, I'm doing 3 or 4 meals a day at the moment, and I was doing 5 before.
Yeah.
I've noticed with the increased fat, my meal frequency dropped down fast.
It will
My
just
desire to eat,
happen.
yeah, it just happens. I mean, I'm going to need more than the average person anyway. So
Yes.
if I started at 3 and I was the average person, I might be 2 or 1 right now. But 5 to 3 is quite a substantial drop for me. I seem to be doing okay. My gym performance is the same. I'm not suffering. I feel overall better. So I can say, at least for me, increasing the fat intake, not so much by ratio, but just eating more basically, especially the fat has definitely helped me.
Absolutely. Another caveat with the fats is that you want to eat them cold when possible or room temperature. Hot fats, any cooked fats coming off can be very upsetting to the digestive system. So, and then also looking at browned butter. There's nothing better than a beginner and it's so easy. You just like simmer butter on the stove and wait till it browns a little bit, pour it out, and it makes into these candies that you can keep in the freezer, in the fridge. Anytime you have a craving, you can just have some of that browned butter, and oh my goodness, it is so delicious.
Yeah, between me and my girlfriend, we've probably bought over the last probably 2 or 3 months a few hundred sticks of butter.
Yes.
Well, I say sticks, I mean bricks, like 250
Right,
grams.
right, right.
So
Your sticks are
yeah,
bigger than ours. Yes.
yeah. So yeah, we've really looted the grocery store there in terms of butter. So
Fantastic.
yeah.
Beautiful.
So before I let you go, how can people find you?
Oh, absolutely. So I'm Healed by Meat on Instagram. You can reach me there. And I am with Bella at the Steak and Butter Gang. We have monthly challenges. We have a free group, so many things to get involved with. I teach classes 2 hours every week with Raymond on fasting. I've authored courses. So there's just a ton that's there within the Steak and Butter Gang, lots of community. We have live calls going 3 days a week. So lots of Zoom opportunities. But yeah, I mostly spend my time there. I love it. It's so fun.
That's brilliant. Yeah, I mean, I've got to sign up to that at some point, I think.
You need to come join us, Jonathan. Yes, it's amazing. Yeah, there's a ton of energy and all different, topics and posting. And so it's as deep as you want to go with it. We have it all right there.
Perfect.